It's Fan Fiction Friday. Let's grade some of your Mariners trades. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, November 24th, 2023. This is Trident as always, and Colby Patno for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's LOCKDON to get yourself started. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. This is Fan Fiction Friday, the show where you submit your Mariners trade proposals and we grade them on the 20/80 scouting scale, 20 being the worst, 80 being the best, of course. Let's get into them. Let's start here with Switch. Mariners receive Spencer Steer from the Cincinnati Reds for Bryce Miller, Trent Thornton, and Alberto Rodriguez. Colby.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's certainly not bad. But it does seem like it's not my cup of milk. But I think that the issue I run into here is I think Miller for Steer, which is appropriate. I feel like that's pretty fair balance. I'd probably prefer Miller, but Steer certainly had a pretty good year last year, and there is some perceived versatility. When you're bad at multiple spots, people still think you're versatile, but it's an interesting idea. But you do also lose a year of club control. Steer gets a full year of service time this year, whereas Miller doesn't. So it'd be 6 years of Miller for 5 years of Steer. And like I said, I think that's fine, but then why are you why are you giving up more than Miller to get Steer? That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. And granted, you're not giving up a ton. Like Rodriguez and Thornton, they're not super difficult pieces to replace, and they're not carrying that much value to you right now. But still, you don't want to overpay just for the sake of overpaying. And if the Reds are coming to me and saying like, "Hey, we want Bryce Miller," and you say, "Okay, give me Spencer Steer," and they say, "Well, what else are you going to give us? Because that's too much." Then I'm saying, well, then I guess we need to be talking about Matt McLain, because that's a guy who I'm willing to add a little bit to on Miller to get. I'm not willing to do that for Steer. I think Miller for Steer straight up is totally fine, but I'd probably honestly still prefer Miller. So you're overpaying, but it's not a drastic overpay. You're throwing in extra players that probably shouldn't be in the deal, but maybe have to be. So like if I saw that deal come across the ticker, it'd be like, okay, like I understand what they're trying to do, but wouldn't love it, but I'd understand what they were doing. So overall, the trade is fine. I feel like if anything, the Reds need to be adding these type of pieces on their side to match value. But overall, I would say 40, 45, somewhere in that range. Like it's certainly not bad.
Okay, I'm going to say this again and again and again until the day that Bryce Miller or Brian Wu eventually get traded, if they ever do get traded. Bryce Miller is one of the few players that are feasibly available this offseason that represent the most valuable commodity in all of baseball, which is young, affordable, controllable starting pitching, who has already established himself a little bit in the league and has already flashed middle of the rotation stuff. That's very valuable to me. 6 years of club control for 5 of Spencer Steer, who's a really good hitter. Don't get me wrong. Really good hitter, Spencer Steer. But he doesn't have a defensive home. He posted a -17 outs above average across the board this past season. That's terrible. It's just, look, it's fine. If they traded Bryce Miller for Spencer Steer, I'm not dragging Jerry Dipoto over that and Justin Hollander. I'm not. It's a fine deal. It's a fine move, if you will, Colby. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does feel weird to me that with everything that I've just said, the Mariners rather are the ones adding additional pieces. Not that I think that Trent Thornton and Alberto Rodriguez really anything, but to me, it's just weird that the Mariners, who to me are giving up the more valuable piece here, are giving up more. They're adding more to the deal on their side rather than the Reds. That to me feels a little bit backwards, but I think this is fine. It's a 40. So next trade from Daisy and the Dingo. It's another Reds deal. M's get Christian Encarnacion Strand and Jorge Polanco. Reds get Brian Wu, and the Twins get Connor Phillips. So essentially, the Mariners are trading Brian Wu for Christian Encarnacion Strand and Jorge Polanco. Colby, what do you think about that deal?
I don't quite get it. Why would the Twins trade Polanco for Connor Phillips? I don't understand why wouldn't the Reds, like, if the Reds are trading Connor Phillips, why wouldn't they just go trade for like Max Kepler instead of Polanco? Polanco goes to the Mariners. I just don't understand like how the Mariners get Brian Wu and they turn him into two players when they're only giving up one. I don't think Wu carries that kind of value. I think Encarnacion Strand for Wu is something that the Reds might consider. But to me, I don't think the Twins are getting enough here to give up Polanco. So I don't think that the Reds would give up Encarnacion Strand and Phillips just to get Wu. I feel like there's a piece missing in this deal. And I think it has to come from Seattle's side. It doesn't have to be I don't think it has to be a significant piece, but like, I don't know, Emerson Hancock, maybe Jonathan Clase. Like, I don't think it's an elite prospect or anything like that, but I do feel like it's a little pie in the sky for the Mariners. But then again, the Twins are dumping payroll. Apparently, they're trying to. They have some depth in the infield now, so Polanco might not fit all too well. But I would honestly bet that the Twins would look at that and be like, okay, but we can get more for that. We can get more than that for Polanco. So how about instead we give you like Kyle Farmer? At which point doesn't really make a lot of sense for the Mariners. So I just feel like this deal is a piece off. Like, you're missing a piece. Either something needs to be changed or somebody needs to be added. But it's a 3-team deal, and those are definitely harder to maneuver than a 2-team deal. So overall, I think I'll go, I don't know, 40. Just doesn't really doesn't pass the sniff test to me.
Yeah, I was somewhere in the 40 to 45 range. Let's call it 42. Yeah, good one. Yeah, it does feel like a piece off from the Mariners side of things. I get that the Twins are reportedly trying to shed some payroll, and Polanco's an obvious candidate for that, along with Max Kepler. Because they're on shorter term deals and they're making a fair bit amount of money. I don't know if Connor Phillips, though, necessarily moves the needle for the Twins enough. He's interesting. Don't get me wrong. Interesting arm. But
he is. But I do wonder, like, is he the type of arms the Twins want to take a shot on?
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know enough about the Twins. But,
I
obviously...
also wonder, like, what do you do with all these infielders, right? You throw Polanco into the mix, you throw Encarnacion Strand into the mix, you already have France, you have Rojas, you have Urias. How does that kind of all work? I mean, like, nothing's stopping you from trading one or two of those guys, obviously, but I'm just not sure, like, if that's what the Mariners would actually want in this deal. All right, we got more trades coming up in just a moment, but first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and a whole lot more. And yeah, the Mariners might not be playing right now, but the Kraken and Seahawks are. So whether the action is on turf or on the ice, you can bet on it all with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON and kick off the NFL season. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen here on Fan Fiction Friday. And as a reminder, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get back into your trades here, folks. We are going to look at this deal here from Matt. It's a deal between the Brewers and the Mariners. Michael Arroyo, Darren Bowen, Cade Marlowe, Jose Caballero for Willy Adames and Abner Uribe, who's a one of the more underrated relievers in baseball right now. Very exciting young arm. What do you think about this deal?
Yes, from the land of cheese, which is very fitting today.
Dairy. Yep.
I think it's kind of a lot to give up for 1 year of Adames, especially when I'm not quite sure how he fits. Like, are they moving JP to second base for him? Are they moving Adames to third base? Are they moving Adames to second? Like, how does this fit? Arroyo is obviously, a pretty exciting prospect. Needs to have a slightly better year this upcoming year, but no reason to give up on him yet. Marlowe and Caballero, they're major league depth, so not a huge deal to lose them. But Darren Bowen's one of the more underrated prospects in the system.
Friend of the show.
Yep. His big knock on him is that he's always been a small guy. He's up to 185 now. He's got the wicked slider, really good fastball. So he certainly has a chance to be a valuable piece either in the rotation or out of the bullpen. So it's basically, to me, it's basically Arroyo and Caballero for 1 year of Adames, and then it's Bowen and Marlowe for Uribe. It's not bad. Like, I don't think it's bad. It's a lot to give up for 1 year of Adames, and Adames wasn't very good last year, offensively speaking. And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I feel pretty good about my defense on the infield. And so unless you're going to sell me on moving JP to second base, and he's okay with that, and Adames is the shortstop, I don't think you're upgrading, all that much defensively by putting Adames at third or second. So, I don't know if I want to give up 1 year of that. Uribe is certainly makes this more interesting, but I think it's a little heavy, but it's not bad. It's not something I want to put out to pasture. It's fine.
All fair points, Colby. With regards to Adames, yeah, it does really matter in terms of where he's going to play defensively. Optimally speaking, we've said this in the past, talking about Adames, that it would make the most sense for him to play shortstop and JP to move over to second base. But that's up to JP. I think JP's earned that right to decide if he wants to move off a shortstop or not. Yeah.
Imagine just telling him you're the second baseman now after the year he just had.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I do like this deal a lot, though, because I believe that I believe that Adames can be significantly better than he was offensively this past year. And I really like Abner Uribe, and sinker slider guy. Mariners love those dudes. That's the meta right now for the Mariners and their relievers.
It is indeed.
And I get that guy for what, 6 years or whatever it is, 5 years. Yep. Like, I would do this deal. It is a lot, and there's definitely a good amount of risk here with Adames. It's only for a year, but I can talk myself into this deal.
20 walks in 30 innings for Uribe. Oof. That's tough. Now again, you get him for 6 years. Obviously, Seattle's not afraid to take shots on guys like this. They just did. Yeah. When they traded Geno. So I'd say this: if this came across the ticker, I think it is a really good win now move. There would be questions like, where's Adames going to play? but Uribe certainly goes into the back half of that bullpen, and he kind of has to earn the high leverage spots, but he certainly can. So this came across the ticker. I'd be like, okay, I get it. They're going for it this year. That's good. Only 1 year of Adames makes it a little scary for me to give up Arroyo or Bowen even. But like if it was just Bowen straight up for Adames, I would do that. And I think the rest of it for Uribe, yeah, I think that's fine. So I think I'd probably give this one a 50. I think it's solid. To me,
I'm gonna go much higher, Colby.
you're gonna go higher.
I'm gonna go much higher.
Oh no,
I really like this deal. When I saw it, this is why I put it on the show. I really like this deal.
Ty's in a good mood today.
I'm giving it a 60.
No,
I think
not
this
that
is
much higher.
I mean, it's 2 full grades higher. Like,
it's fine.
I really like this deal. This is very good, Matt. This is very good.
I mean, he's no Devin Williams, but
that's true. I do think though we'll be talking about Devin Williams here in a little bit. So yeah.
No.
All right.
Ty was just obsessed with cheese today. 2 Milwaukee trades.
Dylan here says, I just really like this player, so I'm going to throw it out there. Phillies get Brian Wu, Michael Arroyo, Taylor Trammell for Bryson Stott. So yeah, I think this is more a deal that you realize like the Phillies are probably not going to trade Stott. I totally get that. So I'm just going to look at this from a pure valuation standpoint because again, the Phillies are not trading Bryson Stott. I can't imagine that happening. I think this is fine valuation. Stott is a really good defender, but he hasn't hit much. I mean, he hits for a high average, but WRC plus wise, I think he was like 84 WRC plus last year. This year it's like 101, something like that. So he hasn't been that good of a hitter, but he hits for a high average. He steals bases. I can hit for some pop. There's definitely quite a bit of value there. I think Wu and Arroyo is Trammell here is nothing. Trammell, is probably going to get DFA'd at some point this offseason. So from that perspective, that's really nothing. So I'm just looking at Arroyo and Wu here. I think that's good valuation. It might need another piece though on top of that to line up with Bryson Stott.
Yeah. Stott is only 26. He's got 4 years of club control left, like maybe 5. I think he might be Super 2 eligible next year. So, yeah, he's a 4-win player this year, but like you mentioned, not a ton of hit, but certainly he's not a 0 at the plate. By no means is he not providing value at the plate. I do wonder if you're looking for a similar-ish type of player, Brendan Donovan makes more sense, and he's probably available this winter as well, and probably for something like the package you're describing. So for a player like Stott, I think this is probably a little bit light, but not terrible by any stretch. And I think if you're looking for a similar kind of deal to just slide this package over into, it would be something like Donovan, and maybe you get even Dylan Carlson out of it too, or something like that. So, it's valuation wise, I think it's fine, but you're right. The Phillies aren't trading Bryson Stott. There's just no way. I mean, maybe if you start flashing Logan Gilbert at them, but Phillies pitching is pretty good. They feel pretty good about where they're at, and if they want another pitcher, they could just go buy one. So, I feel like the specific deal is probably like a 30, 35, just because Stott's not an available player. But I think if you're looking for a player like Bryson Stott, similar to that, then I think it's probably somewhere in that range is what you're looking at, plus or minus a piece or an upgrade here or there. But I think it's in the ballpark. The specific deal, it's 30. You're targeting a player that's not available, unless you drastically if you throw Kirby out there, then they probably do that, but you're not going to. For just the player, like the idea of the player that you're after, I think that's about right. So I'll go 50.
Yeah. From that perspective, 50. If we're just looking strictly at valuation, if let's just say that Bryson Stott was available, let's just pretend for a second here, if he was available, I think this is pretty close to fair valuation for Stott. I think you probably need to chip in one more piece if you're the Mariners. Not a significant piece, but something that balances out just a little bit more. But I think Arroyo and Wu do a lot of the heavy lifting here, and I think that's a solid offer for someone like Bryson Stott, given where he's at in his career and kind of the player that he is and what his profile is. So, yeah. Good stuff. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen here on Fan Fiction Friday. We got 3 more trades to go over from you guys. We got one here from Connor, Bo Bichette, and Jordan Romano for Logan Gilbert, Matt Brash, and Cole Young. To me, Logan Gilbert is the most valuable player in this deal. So why? And Matt Brash is unequivocally the more valuable reliever, between him and Romano.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the Mariners also giving up Cole Young?
To me, Gilbert's pretty significantly the most valuable player in this deal because you get Gilbert for 4 years, you get Bichette for 2. Like that's the ball game right there. It's over. Like Bichette for Gilbert straight up is not an equitable deal for the Mariners. Then the Blue Jays also get a more valuable reliever and a top 50 prospect in all of baseball. Now you're paying for the name. You're paying for the Bichette name. You're not paying for the player that he actually is. So no,
because again, you're not trading for the hope of an extension or anything like that. Does not factor into the valuation. So you're trading 4 years of Logan Gilbert for 2 years of Bo Bichette. I think that's how many years he has left. 2 years. Yep. And then you're trading 5 years of Brash, 4 years of Brash for
5, I think.
Is it 2 years or 1 year of Romano?
I think it's 1 plus an option.
I
think he signed an extension, but
anyway, and Brash is already a better reliever than Romano is. So
yeah,
2 years of Romano. So yeah, and then I also have to chip in a top 50 prospect in Cole Young, or if you're the low man on Cole Young, all right, top 80 prospect in baseball.
You're right. Who's got an outside shot to make his debut this year? Like he's knocking on the door of the big leagues.
He's close. He's close. Yeah,
he's close. So like probably 2025 is more realistic for him, but that's close in prospect circles. So no, it's a drastic overpay. You're paying for a name. You're paying for Bichette's name and not the player that he is. And Gilbert's just better. He's more valuable than Bichette. So yeah, I think honestly, if you'd come at me with Bichette and Romano for Gilbert, I'd be like, okay, like I'd listen on that. Mm-hmm. But I'm certainly not giving up Brash, and I'm certainly not giving up Cole Young, either of them, for those two players, if I have to give up Gilbert. So
agreed.
25, 30.
Yeah. Sorry, Connor.
It's just a drastic overpay.
Yeah, agreed. Next one here from Doug, Christian Yelich and Devin Williams for Emerson Hancock and Tyler Locklear. For all of Yelich's contract? 20. If the Brewers are eating a significant amount of Yelich's contract, all right, then 50. Because you know how much I love the idea of Devin Williams, and if you're getting Yelich as like a 11 to 14-ish $1 million a year player instead of the 26 or whatever he is right now, and all you have to give up for that is Hancock and Locklear, yeah, I think that's like a 50. But you didn't mention the contract here, so if it's just all of Yelich's contract,
if it's all of Yelich's contract, that idea is about as useful as a moon pie, or should I say cow pie? But
mm-hmm.
That one's a little more on the nose.
This is not going to play at all on the audio version of the show. People listening, I guess in their
you guys got to head over
now,
to YouTube. If you guys are listening and not watching, just go to the YouTube video, see the first frame, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and then go back and listen. This will make a lot more sense. But Yelich's contract is prohibitive, despite how good of a year he had, and also he wasn't all that good the year before. So there's some concerns there with the performance. He's 34 years old, I believe. I mean, you still got him for another 5 years. You can't pay that guy more than $12 to $15 million a year. So again, as presented to us, because there's no mention of paying down the contract at all. Still like a 35, I think, because Williams is insane and Yelich, despite being overpaid, if you're paying him $26 million a year, still coming off a really good year, and he fits Seattle, like the ballpark. He fits the lineup. He fits the need very well. So if we're paying down that to a dollar figure, that's appropriate and easier to swallow, then like HUD. If you're doing that, then I think it's probably still a 50, because then at that point I wonder, do the Brewers do this? Like, what's the incentive for the Brewers to take this deal? So
Yeah.
there's definitely a balancing act here on the salary, where
Right.
the Brewers are eating so much that they're just giving away Devin Williams for, a couple good prospects, but certainly not elite or mind bending prospects. And that just doesn't seem like something they'd be interested in. They could get more than that for Devin Williams.
Do you want to know what this cardigan is actually from?
No, the Cruella de Vil collection.
Yeah. Close. Have you seen the new Spider-Verse movie?
I was gonna say, is that the ink guy
It's
or
the Spot? Yeah, it's the Spot.
Yeah, the Spot guy.
Yeah, Spot. Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
last trade. This one was sent to me from someone that wanted to remain anonymous. They sent a DM.
Coward.
They sent a really nice message though, so I was like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll put your trade in here.
Nice person, but still a coward.
Right. So it's a 3-team deal with the Orioles, Mariners, and White Sox. Orioles receive Logan Gilbert, Mariners receive Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez, and the White Sox receive Heston Kierstad, Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby, and Gabby Gonzalez. So this is essentially Logan Gilbert and Gabby Gonzalez for Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez from the Mariners side of things. Yeah, complicated deal. Colby, what do you think?
I think it's probably about right, just in terms of value.
Sure.
Solely from what the Mariners are getting. Like, I don't think the White Sox are getting enough if they're not getting Logan Gilbert. And if they're not getting Logan Gilbert in this deal, they're not trading Robert. So I think it dies right there. But just, when you knock down all the extra, window dressing and you just kind of look at for what it is, when you tip over the rest of the cows and there's only one standing, the Gilbert and Gonzalez for Robert and Eloy, I think it's about right. There's a possibility, and I don't think it's unfair, where the White Sox look at that and be like, okay, we need something else, though, because Robert is actually more valuable than Gilbert because he's an elite center fielder. And while the Mariners are going to say, okay, well, he's not going to play center field for us, the White Sox are going to say, we don't care. That's not our problem. So I think valuation-wise, it just, when you break it down to that very simple, those 2 for 2, I think it's fine. I think it's a 50-55, somewhere in that range. But I think you also probably have to add a little bit more, unless the White Sox are just like desperate to get rid of Eloy's contract, which isn't that bad. Yeah, Jimenez is a DH only, which is fine. You have that opening, and Robert would play probably left field, which is fine. You can do that. So,
but that diminishes his value a little bit because he's an amazing defensive center fielder, and obviously amazing center field defense is a lot more valuable than amazing corner outfield defense.
Right, you're not moving Julio, for Robert. So, it's certainly interesting. I think the injury concerns are pretty real for Robert.
Sure.
This is the first year he played over 100 games in his entire career. But yeah, I think this is what it's going to take. Like, if you want Luis Robert, I think you have to be willing to talk Gilbert. I don't think that Wu or Miller is going to headline a Robert trade. So, I think overall, when you boil down to just what the Mariners are getting and what they're giving up, which is kind of the only avenue we care about here, then I think it's probably a 50. Because I think you might have to add a little bit more, but it's certainly in the ballpark.
The 3-team deal itself, because I don't think the White Sox are getting enough, is probably like a 35. But from the angle that you're taking, Colby, I would say it's probably 50. I think the Mariners probably have to chip in a little bit more here because, obviously injury concerns, but Robert, it has the potential to be one of the best players in all of baseball. There's obviously going to be a very, very high premium on that. Sure. He does. But, amazing glove, hits a ton of homers, steals bags. Like, he does it all. Like, so it's obviously going to have a major premium on that. So,
right. If you guys didn't know, the White Sox hold a funeral for Eloy Jimenez pretty much every year. So he also has his own injury concerns.
Right.
So yeah, it's not the perfect deal, but it's something that I think gets the conversation going.
Sure.
So yeah, for that standpoint, like, you don't need the Orioles in this deal because the Orioles actually get in the way, because it doesn't seem like the White Sox are super interested in far away prospects. right? Like they want guys who have a major league track record. Look at what they traded Aaron Bummer for, like a bunch of, fringe major leaguers.
Mm-hmm.
So if the White Sox want to kind of do a quick rebuild thing, then they're going to be the team that wants Logan Gilbert. And honestly, the Orioles can go pound sand because they don't have anything worth Gilbert that's not, Gunnar Henderson or Jackson Holiday. So if I'm trading Logan Gilbert, I want a star back, and Luis Robert is a star. So that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, you either want a star or you want two very good players back for Gilbert.
Proven
and
players.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so that's going to do it for us. Colby, I know you have a question of the day for the people in the chat watching the premiere, or the people down in the comments watching after the fact. What's the question of the day?
Since we do the premiere every day, we should probably ask the question of the day at the top, but whatever. Question of the day. We're going old school here as a kid of the 90s who watched 101 Dalmatians. My question for you
what about 102 Dalmatians?
No, OG for life. Speaking of OG, very simple question. Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur. Let us know. Who is your starter in the comments down below. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just know we would never hang out socially.
Right. I know who your favorite is. Who is your least favorite of the three, though, Colby?
Oh, man, that's like asking which kid do you hate the most? Every family has one. We all know it. I knows it's him, but
right. Yeah. Very true. Very accurate. Very painful.
I think Charmander, honestly, is my least favorite one. Just a very basic design. I mean, to be fair, so is Squirtle. He's a turtle. Like, but
Squirtle's a homie, though. Squirtle's a homie.
Squirtle Squad. Yeah. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Charmander is just no personality until he becomes Charmeleon. Very
Bulbasaur is my favorite.
Huh?
Bulbasaur is my favorite too. Then it goes Squirtle. Then it goes Charmander. Though I like Charmander a lot, but
yeah, I mean, they're all great.
Charmander gets 3. Also, as someone that does play a little Pokemon trainer in Smash Bros, you get all 3 of those guys. I do mostly play Ivysaur and Squirtle. So
Ivysaur is the best middle evolution. I think Blastoise is the best final evolution.
I really like Charizard though. Charizard's pretty.
No, Charizard's awesome. Like, the Bulbasaur line definitely has the weakest third evolution. Like, I think Venusaur is pretty cool, but it's just not as cool as Charizard or Blastoise. So
sure. All right. Well, let us know in the live chat. You only have a minute left to do that. So maybe go to the comments instead. And maybe now that we're doing premieres every day, we'll start doing the question of the day a little earlier on in the show. We'll figure out a spot to start doing that. All right. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dan Gonzalez, that's CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Where's the beef?